Hey guys, this is Coach JT, and we got a special guest with us tonight here on Inside the Dugout with the Pack. We've got Angel Rodriguez here, and he's going to tell us a little bit about himself, where he coaches, and then we're going to ask him. We're going to dive deep into how he builds a culture at his college.
Thank you. Angel Rodriguez here. Going on 8 years of coaching now. So I think every time I think about how long it's been, I feel older and older. But um, I started off, with some travel in high school, and then made my way. Had an opportunity to head over to the college, collegiate area. Currently doing Salem Community College, a JUCO Division II program in New Jersey. And it's been an honor and blessing so far. I'm heading into my fourth year there, so continuing to build and do things there. But you were able to kind of bring that program back. One thing many people don't know as we really dive into it, but they haven't been around since the early 2000s. So it's an athletic program and softball program that really had a hiatus of not being around. So it was great to kind of jumpstart that back up after COVID, and see that program now do well. Where we are now.
That's awesome, and especially since you're taking the time to be with us here tonight. Kind of give us. I know you got a recruiting pitch. I don't know if that's necessarily what we need, but we want to know like why would a young woman want to go play for you at Salem?
That's a good question, and I would definitely say the first thing is opportunity. You can go to a lot of places and play softball. There's not many places you can go and feel like you're making an impact, but doing what you want to do, and that's play. And we really believe in recruiting players that are going to get the opportunity to do that from day one and have the opportunity to compete, and play as much as they can. And then after that, our goal is to kind of guide the athletes where they want to be. If you want to start 2 years and really develop more as an athlete and look to expand that and continue on and get your next 2 years on at the next level, we're going to try and help you every way of that, as we can. And then on the side note, sometimes we get athletes that, hey, coach, I want to play just 2 more years. I really like the sport. I really love being a part of a team and competing. And then after that, I think I just want to do my academics, and we're going to support them there too. It doesn't just stop with like, hey, if you are, don't want to continue being an athlete, we're not going to think about you, right? So I think kind of both things, going somewhere where you're going to feel valued and wanted, but also pushing you to that next level, on and off the field, is what we strive to do, and support those athletes in that. And sometimes some players, want to have that experience. We have a really good out of state roster right now, and we've had that for the last couple years since we started. And a lot of that again is opportunity. Coming to a college for a cheap education, very affordable, a quality education, and then using that power now to go and transpire, into your next stage. And any way we can do that, we're going to help. So on top of that, I have to say we have, probably everyone probably says this, but I really do have some of the best assistants that probably make me look a lot better than I am. But they are truly the power behind everything we do.
Nice. So tell us a little bit about the location. So you're in New Jersey?
We're in New Jersey, yeah. So we're in Carneys Point, New Jersey. It's about, almost as far down south as you can get in New Jersey. It's a very small area. I think that attracts a lot of people too. You're going to a place where you're not going to be overwhelmed or, looked at as just a number in a classroom, a number on the field. We're very family atmosphered on campus. Our president will say it all the time, but we really put the community in community college where we are. Everybody gets to know each other. The professors know the student athletes. A majority of them come out and support the games. And I think that's true value just to kind of see the support they're getting. And especially for me, as a coach in the program, just seeing that, with their players connecting and opening up those relationships and connections, for their future too. And not many places you're going out where, your president of the college is a strong supporter, going to your games, trying to do whatever they can to increase the athletics and the community as a whole. So a lot of good things happening around campus. We're adding a football team. So the second JUCO football team on the East Coast right now in New Jersey. So a lot of good things happening that I think people are going to start taking advantage of for sure.
Yeah, I love that. I think a lot of times when I'm talking to the girls and coaching my travel ball teams, their biggest fear is leaving home. And it seems more so with the girls than the boys. The boys are like, I'm out of here. See ya. Peace. There's a few of them that aren't like that, but the girls like to be a little closer to home. But what I found is when they're traveling, because we're in Colorado, right? So that's quite a ways from us, New Jersey. But when they travel that distance, if it's to a place where it's a community type feel, where they're feeling like they're going from their family at home to their family at school and on the field, that's real important and can really help in that recruiting process.
Yeah, yeah, it definitely can. And I think that's why I go back to having a roster with a mix of kind of some locals and some out of state. When they're coming in, they're realizing, hey, there's eight more other athletes here that are out of state that are doing what I'm doing. And that kind of builds that connection too. Like, hey, like, how are you making this work? And how do you feel like you left home and you're, two states away from where I am? How did that go? And a lot of the times they feel a little bit more comfort in that too, knowing like, okay, like, you did it and you're doing well and you love it. And I have to grant it, our players do a really good job of talking to incoming athletes too and letting them know about the schedule and how doable it is and the living space. We actually had, just I currently still have someone from Colorado, and her sister joined us last year, graduated. So very well familiar with getting some West Coast players too. So that's always a good thing. But again, to your point, being far away, are you going to see yourself here? And I think once they get started, they realize like, all right, this is pretty easy.
Yeah. Yeah, I love that. So tell us a little bit about your journey into the college ranks. I know you mentioned it briefly at the very beginning, but I think it's pretty cool that you started in travel ball or you started in high school?
Yeah, so I started off in travel. I did the go back and try to coach baseball and see how that goes, and started off with like a JV high school team. Went back to where I went to high school, and I'll tell you, it was just slow. I think I just enjoyed playing it, but coaching it, I don't think it was for me. And so as I'm thinking about what I want to do, and I really knew I wanted to coach, just connecting with some local people I knew, they said, "Hey, we need someone that's not a dad to come coach our softball team." And I said, can do that, so I showed up and I think just the passion, and there were 12 girls, and the passion I just saw from the energy, I was like, this is fun. I said, I think this is where I want to be. And then that just kind of exploded into this whole new world of get into travel and do this, and so many good families and players that you get to meet along the way. And then that just opened up avenues to get into high school. And I wanted to learn more. So I'm like, okay, what's the next step? Like, where can I go to really dive into knowing more about the game and getting involved? So I went through the, education. That's where I went to school. I went to school for education. So kind of got into the teaching realm that kind of guides you right into coaching at some point. So it's just a really good avenue. And truthfully, my road to collegiate softball was just a chance. I realized like, hey, look, I was doing this for quite some time. So what is the next challenge I can get into? And there's an opportunity to start a program from scratch. The college had posted it up there, and I said, why not? Let me just apply, let me interview, see what I can learn and do. And at the time, our previous athletic director and our current athletic coordinator who interviewed me, they were just like, we can see like you want this, like you can get this started. And that was their biggest thing was we need someone that knows how to recruit, is going to be on the forefront and really lift this off. And I'll tell you, it was challenging. I walked in and there was a cage where the equipment was, and there was about a bucket of balls and a tee. And the athletic director at the time said, "What do you need to get started?" And I just said, "Everything." So it was like, where do I start? And I was like, okay, I said, let's do this. I said, let me, really dive in. And I think travel helped with the connections of the majority of like, okay, I had a good foundation of different families and athletes I knew. Let me try and pitch them first. Let me get accustomed to the college area, have to know about the school, got to know the programs, got to meet some staff. So it was a lot of just kind of like taking more in and receiving information and just asking questions. And then I kind of laid out a forefront of like, okay, this is going to be the pitch. This is what I can see here is is going to get the athletes to get here. And then it was just all about recruiting. So that was the toughest part. But we were on everything, any recruiting site from field level to NCSA to word of mouth to local coaches to going to clinics and just meeting players. And then going to different like coaching, talking chats or communications, anything I can get to learn from other people. I really dove into to try and like, okay, maybe I can use a little bit of this and use that. A ton of Zooms. I couldn't tell you how many Zoom calls and phone calls I did to this day. more than I should be. But it was awesome. I mean, just kind of answering questions from athletes, trying to get them to, know what we have. And I think the good thing was we were a new program. So some student athletes took that as like, hey, this is a great opportunity. I'm going to go. There's no players in front of me. I'm like, hey, you're pretty much the forefront. We can get you in here. You're playing 50 games. We're getting 50 games on the schedule. And our athletic director was like, well, let's start off with, 25, 30, the first year. I said, no, we're just going to go from the top. Let's just get into it. And we were able to do it, and it's been a great journey. But definitely a lot of learning. Got to learn a lot, kept some things throughout a lot of things, but
Yeah, for sure. What I noticed going from the travel ball ranks to the college ranks and then back to the travel ball ranks again is at the travel ball, you're mostly dealing with the parents, right? It's a lot of communication with the parents. Once you're in college, it's like, no, you got a young adult here. I'm talking to you. This is you. You got to make these choices, and it becomes a different pitch and a different conversation at that point.
yeah, it definitely does. We'll get a little bit of both. So, some parents have a couple good questions, and I enjoy that too. Sometimes they're on the other side of the camera at a kitchen table, like whispering, like, "Hey, ask this." I'm like, "Who's talking to you? Like, bring them on in the frame. Let me say hi." And sometimes they're like, "I really want her to do it." I'm like, "Yeah, but at some point, this is your daughter, and I get it. You're sending her 4 or 5 states away, or sometimes 12, 13 hours. I want you to ask some questions. I want you to make sure that this is going to be okay too." And so after that, they're kind of okay. But it is amazing. A lot of parents who do tell their, daughters, like, hey, this is on you. If you like it, we're going to go for it. And it's going to be up to you. And the conversation does change because you want to tailor it to make sure that they know, they're going to get comfortable, but like they're going to be well maintained too. We're going to look after them. Between us and our coaching staff, they probably get more texts from me than their parents while they're here. And that's just checking in and doing conversation. So I think part of that just that ease in process, but it is a lot different, and it is a lot more on the child. But we try to make a really good transition, knowing that that's going to happen, right? Like some of these athletes are taking charge for the first time in the last 5 years. Like, how can we make sure these conversations are more easy? Not like I'm stuck. What do I do? Or I'm uncomfortable. I don't know how to talk to them or ask this question. We embrace that conversation. We like that communication.
Yeah, I love it. And it's about building that trust, especially you got to build it a little bit with the parents to allow that for them to allow their daughter to travel across the country to come play for you. But at the same time, you need to build that level of trust with those young girls so that they stay because you'd hate to come and work with them all fall and then all of a sudden they go home and break and they don't come back. And I've seen that. I've seen that on girls that I've sent away to different schools and it's tough. It's tough on the family. It's tough on the kid. And sometimes it has to do with that recruiting process. Maybe they didn't ask the right questions. They didn't have the right conversations. But it sounds like you're doing all that. So I think right now, Angel, what I'd like to do is let's transition into. I know we were talking about the success cycle in the community earlier, and I really like how you answered that and how you utilize that. Can we talk about that on tonight's call?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, let's get into it. Yeah, I would say, is there anything specific you really kind of want to tackle? Like, what specific kind of information do you think?
Yeah. The, okay. So when I posted that article, and I know because I've been coaching coaches for a lot of years now, and the first thing they focus on is drills. We got to drill, 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 drill. And even the community as a whole knows that you got to start here, right? And you got to understand a few things before the learning process gets easier. So if you drill, 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 of course that's going to work. But I always like talking about it like the bicycle, like riding your bike. Okay. Maybe your dad or your mom or your friend or somebody helped and kind of guided you a little bit there, but they didn't tell you this is how you balance. They just kind of pushed you along and you figured it out. Right. And so a coach's job in that cycle is to specifically say, okay, I'm not here to tell you specifically how to do this. I'm going to give you some guidelines and then I'm going to give you tips and drills to help refine what you're doing. And as you have more successes, then you're going to have different tips and drills, different exercises to help you go to the next level because it can't take you from T-ball to all-star in one season, you know? And it's about finding that balance. So I guess where I would say is let's start at something besides the actual success. So you have success, you have activity, you have experience, and you have uh, confidence, right? So just pick one of those besides, I would say, success and expound on it because you did a really great job of that in the community.
Yeah, the first thing I would start off with is confidence. When we're getting athletes in, and all these athletes we bring in, whether our rosters usually sits around 15 to 17, as we get at, they're all playing with each other for the first time. They're coming in, they want to compete, they're nervous, they're excited, they're energetic. It's a great time. And then they hear us say like, hey, one line next to the cone, and they're like, okay, and they're thinking we're going to go out there and just do IO to start. And I'm like, it's our first practice, I got to see what we have and what our footwork is. And so, we always preach fundamentals. And I think that's the confidence is once we slow it down for them, they ease their way in like, okay, I don't have to worry about standing next to three people at second base or in center field. And like, if my throw is bad, but hers is good, I'm not going to start. We don't like to do that at all. So we try to ease it in. And the first thing we like to do is, and I learned this from a couple different coaches and just kind of talking with my staff is the first day after we do a lot of our fundamentals, we go through each position, we go through what we like, and what we're seeing. We go through the different level of rules and how quick things are. And a lot of athletes are used to sitting in a circle and high fiving and chit chatting for a while. I'm like, hey, we don't have that time. We're on the clock. We got to go. So getting them to understand the small things first about the game, building the IQ, getting the footwork, kind of seeing what we're seeing, we let them inter squad and we'll split them up and have them go at it. And we don't coach. We just say, hey, I want to see where we are. And there's no right or wrong. And we sit in the back at the backstop and we just chart and we're just watching who has the IQ, where we at, and we film it. And then we watch it together as a group and we ask them for feedback. We let them guide that whole day. And we just ask them like, hey, what are we noticing? Who noticed something? And some of them are silly, like I really liked how they bun it twice in a row, like that we weren't expecting that. And so getting them to see those things and talk about it as more good things starts building that up. Like, okay, yeah, I'm glad like she noticed that, but like she's also playing third base, but she saw me do good. So it's just like little things that we like to do to build that up. And it's never about drills, and just getting after. We got to break it down so they know what they're doing. I can tell you to do three things, forehand, backhand, and on the run throw. But if they don't know why they're doing it or in what situation, it kills it, you know. And if that's all they're practicing and preaching on after that, then we're struggling. So, to build that confidence is going to lead to some of the other things that happen, but it's going to start with their confidence not only with themselves but those next to them too, and knowing that their teammates are there for them. Not really, I don't like her because she's starting over me. It's more like, hey, we're competing, we're having fun, and if we can help each other, get better, we're going to do that. And that's that first couple weeks when we're in, and that builds that culture that we dive into.
I love that. I love that. And I love that you chose confidence because that's so important. And it's funny in the book I'm writing right now, The Psychology of Hitting, that's coming out in January. It's it's it has to do a lot with that. And one of the things that I talk about is posture, right? And I think this was my youngest daughter's freshman year of high school. She's in competitive dance. They ended up being national champions, but she went to this competition and the hip hop group that came in, they were so well put together. They basically marched into the auditorium. They had the same headphones. They were dressed head to toe exactly the same. They were in a single file. It was almost like a military unit. Like when they walked by, your posture got better, And I was like, man, what is happening here? And what I realized from that is if if I can go to the girls and help them build that posture when they're sitting there, when we're in a learning environment, and hey, make sure you're sitting up straight, make sure you're doing these things, make sure you have a smile on your face, just always have a smile on your face. And those little tiny things actually boost their confidence because they walk around with their head down and a frown on their face and they wonder why they don't have any friends or nobody wants to talk to them. You change the posture and they got their smile on their face. Now everybody wants to talk to them. And it's literally that's the only thing you have to do.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
if you start to instill that confidence in these girls in little stupid ways like that, right? Little tiny things like that. The uniform they wear, the way they line their bags up, all of those things are little tiny things that you're thinking, how does this affect their playing? But it does. It absolutely does. And it's just part of that cycle. If you find a way to boost their confidence at all, 100% they're going to play better.
Yeah, and especially in this game, you and I both know, and all the coaches know, this is you're in a game of failure. You're going to do it. And I always get a lot of ups and downs about this, but we actually every Friday in the fall when we get started, our fall season isn't it's just a scrimmage base. We're playing, we're having fun, but we do every Friday. We call it Failure Friday, and we build it to fail. And we have this drill and we end the practice, and it actually became, I think, more, it's more of a fun thing for a lot of our players now. They don't really look at it as like a failure thing. But we challenge our players, and we call them out one by one, and the coaches call them, and we hit them five challenging balls, whether it's in the infield or outfield. And the consequence is, hey, if you don't make a clean play, your team has to run. They start at the third baseline, they go to second and back. But the challenge is the person who makes the error doesn't run, right? They have to sit there. But it's installing that the players don't want to run. So they're egging the girl on, hey, you got this, you're good. And the players, I got to make this play for my team. I don't want them to run anymore either. And now it's like so fun when they make that diving play to stop the ball from going into the outfield and the infield. Like the ecstatic they have. And most of the time we do it on purpose. Hey, we're going to put an outfielder in the infield. Hey, you got to protect this ball. It's not getting by you. And they do. I mean, they go all out and they're like, I'm challenge accepted. And, you know, it created such a really good, year to year thing that we look forward to. Like our returning players, when we say, "Hey, it's the first Failure Friday," they're hyped, and the freshmen are looking around like, "What's going on?" And we have to explain it, and we talk about it, and then it's just like a thing throughout the rest of the September and October months, and we enjoy it. But it's created like you're going to fail, and guess what? It's okay. There's a minor consequence, but look at the reset. You get another shot to redo it, and your reward is you move on. And same thing when you play. You're going to have an overthrow. You're going to drop a ball. You're going to miss a pitch when you're pitching. You're going to boot a ball, and it's going to be okay. You're going to be able to move on, and there's going to be another thing. And we always say, let you overthrow your first baseman from the infield or miss your cut, but you come up and you hit a double that wins the game. Nobody cares about that throw anymore. You know, you know, you might have struck out a big spot, but you go up and you make a diving play to turn two to end a big inning. That's what they're going to care about. So there's always that next, right? What is my next? What can I do after this? And that's what we preach, year round. You're going to mess up, and we do as coaches. I say it all the time. I run a player out being aggressive, and I'm like, hey, that's totally on me. You did it right. I just maybe thought you had a little bit more kick in you, but they made a good play. It was bang bang play. It was perfect, and I just wanted to challenge us to really do it, and they know how aggressive we are. But we'll take that too. I don't go in there and be like, oh, Susie, I can't believe you didn't get there. Like I told you to go. you know
Yeah, right.
Really, they're like, hey, yeah, they're like, hey, the coach, no problem. I should have been there. I'm like, yeah, we're good. We move on, and it's a great conversation because that's what opens up that communication for us. And I tell our players all the time, and I'm on campus, every day, so they see me too much sometimes for my chocolate and candy, but they see me and atmosphere, and we embrace it. Like, come in and talk if you want to, or if there's a confusion, like, hey, we're all ears. We want to have that conversation, and it opens up to a little bit more relaxation, right? Like, okay, like deep breath. Like he's not as scary as he looks. I can go talk to the head coach. We don't have that persona. Like, oh, it's the head coach. I can't talk to him. Like, no, please do.
I love that. It's like the head of the family, right? You want to be able to communicate. If you're the head and you're a dictator and people don't feel like they can share things openly and safely with you, then the team bonding, the team culture can't ever really set in because there's those defensive walls that are set up. I love that. I do this drill. I started this. A friend of mine was coaching a 18U competitive travel ball team, and he was having trouble with his outfielders were coming up on balls and they were allowing that ball to bounce 1 foot in front of them, which drives a coach absolutely insane, right? I can see that you can clearly catch that ball. I don't understand why you're not getting it, right? And so I developed this drill for him. for him I called the no-fly zone. And I said, but you gotta get excited about it. And he said, well, can you come out and run it for me? And I said, sure. So we went out there and then in the outfield, and I give this big old speech about the outfield grass. It's the no-fly zone. You just cannot let a ball touch this. If it touches the grass, it's an explosion. The game is over. Everybody dies if the ball touches the grass. And then I go out there, and these girls at first are a little slow, and they're coming up on the ball and they're letting it bounce. And then I make a big deal of it. I'm like, oh my God, your teammate just died, and we have a girl drop and all this. And then when they do, by the end of practice, they're diving and catching everything and all this stuff. And I'm like, see, you didn't believe you could make those plays, and you just did it 10 times in a row. And they look back and they say, oh my God, and it's little things like that that are, you think, that's so crazy, JT. I don't understand how that works, but who cares if you understand how it works or not? Just any way you can get them competing and seeing that they're better than they are, because they've always got more than they think. And you as a coach, if you can just find a way to coax that little bit extra out of them, man, over the last 25 years, I've seen some incredible things, man. Incredible things.
No, that's very true, and when it correlates in a game too, I think showing that energy they love. We had a couple where our center fielder made a great play, in October, nice dive. We didn't think she had a shot. I'm like, we're getting ready to yell 3-3-3 out of nowhere. She makes a diving play. And we erode it. And I think like the players like, you guys are more excited. I was like, because we worked on that all week. I was like, it's like we can do it, like just let it go. And that like just opened up. Like after it was like play after play. I'm like, what did we do? But that's the contagious part, right? You do it once, you're like, all right, that's nothing.
Yeah, no, I love it. I love it. I still play ball myself. So I play on three men's leagues and three separate teams. And we were playing, and I was pitching, and it was in the bottom of the ninth, 2 outs, and there's a runner on third, and I've not given up any runs. Right, it's like 9-0, so it's not close, but I haven't given up any runs. And I throw the ball, and there's a lazy fly ball to right field, and I look at my right fielder, and he lets the ball drop 1 foot in front of him, and I'm like, know the situation, bro. So they scored 1 run. I strike the next guy out, but I'm like, seriously? How
So
could you let that drop?
they kill one of our guys, man. What are we doing?
Oh, I love it. And when you're a pitcher and you see your defense doing that behind you, changes everything. It
Yeah.
absolutely changes everything. Gives them the confidence that, hey, I can mess up on a pitch and it's going to be okay because they're going to make a play.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. There's no doubt, and we have that too. We talk to our pitchers because sometimes I even tell our pitchers too, like, hey, that you might miss a pitcher, or you might have had the best pitch, and they might have just had a step late, but your energy feeds off of them too. I've had pitchers in the past where it shows like they're so mad. I said, I know you're mad, but you're gonna need her again because that ball is gonna go right back there. And so sometimes their demeanor changes a little bit. Okay, you're right. And then they go and when they make a big play, I'm like, you better be the first one to high five them now. So just I think, but again, when we do a lot of those team and competitive events that are just kind of trusting each other, I think that just kind of goes like unnoticed now, right? Like there's not much of a hang your head or like, oh, she should have had that. It's like, hey, you got the next one. I got you. Like you're gonna get this one right at you. And sometimes the ball does. We know the ball finds you. As soon as you put the head down, that ball is coming right back to you. And we
Oh
say it
yeah.
all like, here it comes, coming right back. And you better be ready. And then all of a sudden the line drives, they're like, oh my God, it came right back to me. So I told you. It's a funny game, man.
Oh yeah. It's funny how that works, and it always works. I was watching the Denver Broncos play the Packers yesterday, and it was interesting to watch because I'm always, as a coach, trying to see what's happening, right? So you watch Bo Nix. He didn't throw any interceptions yesterday, but he made some play, and I don't remember what it was. Or no, one of his receivers dropped a pass, and I think it was Cortland Sutton, who normally catches everything. And you saw him on the sideline. Bo Nix was saying, "It's all right, buddy. whatever. And then they pan over to the Packer sideline, and you see Love sitting over there, and his defense gave up a touchdown, and he puts his head down and pulls the towel over his head and stuff. And it doesn't matter at that point what you say to your defense because you just showed them. Behavior is the highest form of communication. So if you're a pitcher on the mound and somebody drops a ball and your shoulders drop and you put your head down or you act pissed off, that's telling your teammate more than talking to them, hey, I don't have confidence in you, right? And that will and I've been doing this long enough to know that certain pitchers I put out there, the defense doesn't play as well behind them. And I guarantee you that's why.
Mhm. Yeah, there's no doubt. And it's funny you brought that up because we always challenge our players and we watch it too, with ourselves. But I tell them to watch as much sports as you can, and especially when you're watching when you watch softball, and just listen to the commentators. They're so good at breaking things down. We challenge when Division I is on and you can watch on ESPN now, which is phenomenal, and you can really watch these games. I just tell them like listen to the announcers too. I mean, they're so well educated, and when they break it down, it's like, okay, that's it. Or when they're looking at a breakdown of a swing or why this defense was doing this, I said you can learn so much from other teams. And as a JUCO for us, like players that want to move on, I just say there's things that like you have to start doing mentally, and as your own at that level. And so I always challenge us like we're going to go watch, usually a local team, and in the fall we usually can, and we'll invite players like, hey, we're going to go up and there's a tournament up north, and there's a couple D1 schools up there. If you guys are interested, we're going to go up, and we'll get a good enough crowd, which is awesome. For us as coaches, we're like, this is the buy-in. Here we are, and we just talk, and we don't talk about the goods and bad. We just say, hey, you see this? And we were sitting in the outfield, and it was funny because we were with a couple of our players, and they just said they're like, wow, they talk every play, they're moving, and I said naturally. Like they're not. No one's telling them to do it. No one's telling them. They just do it on their own. I said, and that's where we have to get to, and we know it, but it's like we're shy to do it. And then when they start doing it on their own, like, oh, I want to get there, and I don't communicate, so I better start. It's amazing. He said like, and you can hear them. We're right on the fence. Like you can hear the whole conversation, and they're telling her like, hey, I don't know all the names, but hey, actually, I'm a little bit more towards the line, talking to center field and left field, and so now the center fielder knows like, okay, ball in a gap, I probably have a little bit more room to go get it. The outfielders, letting the infielders know, yo, I'm further back to the fence, so shallow ball, right? You have an option to also get it, and our players are like in shock. They're like, wow, this is like good communication. I said, this is like nothing. Like this should happen all the time. And I think when they see it from others and they see it to where they know they want to get to, it starts changing them a little bit. And our assistant coaches laugh at me because when we came back, we had a scrimmage that weekend, and they're talking to me. They're like, Coach, what did you do yesterday with them? I said, just watched. We just watched was amazing what they pick up. But we tell them all the time, even baseball. Watch baseball. I mean, swinging is almost relatively the same. Listen to the game and listen to how they break it down, and you learn so much. And that's where we challenge them. Like, especially at this level, it's not really just you just show up and play. You have so much more you time as a collegiate athlete. It's different than travel sometimes in high school where you're playing 2, 3 days, in a row or 4 games in a day. We could go 2 days without playing. What are you doing in that time? We can go 3 days sometimes. And so like what you're doing is you're trying to learn more with your IQ. You know how to field a ball at this point, but it's how can I do it all the time consistently, fundamentally, and do that. And it's always learning. So we challenge them, and that's why we record everything and we make them break it down. And a lot of them, don't even know. So when we break it down, we'll start with the coach's view and say like, hey, this is what we see. Now, what do you got? And after the first meeting, they're okay. This is what I should be looking for, and then they can self-evaluate a little bit better. But some of them never done it. And I go, you never watch yourself play or like watch your swing, and they're like, no, not really. I said, then how do you know what to fix? Like self-evaluate. If
Oh,
if you don't, knowing is half the battle. we have 16 players. I can't be in 16 places and we have four coaches. At some point when I turn around, I hope you know what you feel or see. So I think that's like the biggest jump for a lot of what we bring in is like, you want me to watch our game over again? I said, yeah, by tomorrow, actually.
Yeah, I love it. When I travel out and watch my daughter, she's playing at Ellsworth Community College in Iowa right now, and I'll go out there and play with her, and she stays with me in the hotel, and we'll watch game film together of the other team, and we're like, oh, and she's the catcher, so she's the captain, and she's looking at it. She's like, oh, we got to pitch this girl out here. If we do this and this and this is what she's looking for, and so she actually calls most of her games, and she has done that with me since she started playing, so she's a little more experienced than a lot of these girls. But I like to do that with all my catchers and the other players as well. But the catchers and pitchers specifically, you need to be, if there's a way to access it, and now with travel ball and game changer and all that, you can see everybody's games, right? So you go in there and you're watching the other team. Like we on in this last fall tournament, we didn't do so well on Friday. So I watched and I looked and I saw who we were playing on Saturday, and I said, okay, we're going to make some adjustments. So I was out there adjusting the fielders and doing all this stuff. And we won those games on Saturday by a close margin, but we weren't losing. And the players are like, well, how come we played so much better today? And I said, well, I did a better job of putting you in a position to win because I knew what you were up against, right? And at some point, and I call it the self-leader system, but at some point, depending on how far you want to take this game, you're going to have to be able to do that yourself. So it's important for you to pay attention to not only what I'm telling you, to what you're doing, how that affects the game, and then where am I getting my information? Because I'm just like you. The difference is I've been doing this 25 years, right? So I know if I look at these things, I can make adjustments. And as soon as you figure that out, you can do the same and give yourself an advantage. The reason why that shortstop for the Stars team makes almost every play is because she watched you guys hit yesterday, and this hitter hits here, and this hitter hits here, and it's a consistent thing. It's a law of averages. It's what you do. You're not going to change it overnight. So she's preparing for you. And they're like, oh my gosh, mind blown.
Yeah, but yeah, it's great when we get to do that as coach because it makes you feel really good. I had our shortstop, probably well way over in the 5-6 hole, and she hits up the middle. She has a base hit all day long, and the girl turns on it, hits it right to our shortstop, and our players go, "Coach, how'd you know?" I said, "You just know, you just wow, you just know." We're in the sixth inning now. She pulled two already, so it wasn't happening again. And the umpire was cracking up. He comes over and said, "Coach, you put your shortstop all the way over by the line," and she got it. I said, "No, sometimes it just plays in your favor." I said, "I gotta look like awful if the ball goes up the middle." They would have been, well, what's this guy doing? I said, so all those things that fine, it made me look good, but that's part of it. You start to learn. And I said, I was hoping that you would just keep shifting over eventually, but I had to get on you. And when you start realizing the tendencies and knowing our pitchers and what they throw, you can kind of get a sense of like when it's working, where are they going to go consistently, and watching them beforehand, you can get a good sense of like, okay, what am I going to be feeling up, or are they more of a small ball team, get ready to be on your toes? So it's all that, but you got to know, because as a player, you got to be reactive. As coaches, we know what can come, but we can't go out there and push you forward. So having that instinct to be ready for it rather than being caught off guard is all the difference.
Yeah, and I love it when we're able to position them in that place and they make that play. That's fitting into the success cycle because they're now, oh, okay, I made another play. I can do this and all of that. And it drives me crazy when we teams come into our academy from rec ball, right? And they're making the transition to travel ball and they come into us because we're so development focused and they're like, we need to figure this out. And you look at it and everybody is in a static position every reset, every pitch, they're in the same position. And I'm like, wait a minute, guys, you haven't adjusted at all. This batter has pulled four balls to the left side, and your first baseman's a foot off the line. What are we doing here?
Yeah, but I think again, and everyone's different. I know there's so many, nowadays there's so many different travel balls, so many different coaching styles, and we preach that to our players when they come in too. Like, hey, look, I'm not going to say what who you've been to has been wrong, but I'm going to have to adjust a little bit. We're big with our hitters. I always tell our hitters we're not going to change much what you're swinging, but we're going to definitely tweak it to what's best for you. And what we're noticing because at this level they're going to know, your weakness pretty early. We get our players are, coach, I really hate the outside. I said, no, 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 no. You're working on the outside. If you say you hate the outside, I can tell you right now, you're going to get three pitches outside every time. I can tell you right now, I said, because it's what we would do as coaches. Like, we know, like, hey, this girl has not hit outside. We're going to attack it until she hits it. And so I always try to switch even that wording. Like, I hate, no, you don't hate, you're working on it, right? We're getting there because you're going to be able to hit that pitch. We're going to get you there. And so eventually, when they do it and then they do it in a game, they just kind of look there. I know, look, you did it. Now you like the pitch, don't you? And so just that verbiage too. But when we come in, it's always that like, I have a hitting coach. I just said, look, that's great. I'm not gonna down that. But now you're with us 6 days a week. So we're going to know your swing more than anybody else other than you. And our job is to fix it so you can compete where we are. And every area is different. You're going to see sometimes more spin than speed. You're going to see more spin or more speed than spin. You're going to see more off speed. And we know what you're going to get. So like we're going to prepare you for that. It's a lot different. So I think that challenge right away is getting their mindset shifted is a big part of what we do too. It's like, okay, we got to switch some verbiage here. We got to get you on board on what it's really like. And it's fast. And some of them when they see it, they're like, holy crap, we just played 6 innings and it's only been like an hour. I'm like, yeah, yeah. It's not like, we're going to be here for an hour 20, only play 3 innings. It's going and we'll play the full game.
Yep. Yep. No, I love it. When we were watching I had all the girls watching the World Series, and I said, pay attention to what's going on. And I broke down one of Will Smith's at bats when he hit that extra inning home run. I said, if you watch all of his at bats this entire game, they pitch him low and away, they throw him breaking pitches. Yes, he got a couple singles, all that stuff, but there's only one pitch that he hits out of the park anymore. And he used to be more diverse, but anymore, the only pitch he hits out of the park is that inside high fastball. And what did they throw him in the 13th inning? An inside high fastball, and he hits it out. Of course he does. And when I took him through each one of those at bats, they were like, "How did you know that?" I said, "It's tendencies, it's averages. It's why those things. It's why they call it an average. It even though there's outliers, it is usually this way, is what it's saying." And so if I'm the coach for Toronto, I'm saying, dude, we are staying away from inside middle. Anything above the hip is not going inside on Will Smith. Just don't do it because he will make you pay more times than he won't.
Yeah.
And it's fun because when we put these girls or even our baseball players in a position where they're more likely to succeed, they succeed more often, and now they have more confidence, and that's all just building right back into that cycle.
Yeah, yeah, and I think, and even with it, it changes. And like we said before, it changes their body language. It changes their effort for the rest of the day. And so once they connect into that and tap into it, you can just see the difference. And we like to point it out without pointing it out, but we'll say, hey, we're just going to take a look at this inning real quick. And we know as coaches what we're gonna watch a couple people jogging out or walking, and we just play that and then we move on. And I go, why did we do that? And they go, wow, that was bad. Like I actually like I felt like I was moving. I said, you were not, you were definitely moving, but you weren't moving. you know. And so when they see, I think when they see they don't run, and they're like, holy cow, like yeah, that's very noticeable. And it goes back, no matter where you're at, you never know who they are. So you don't want to be the person that they talk about not doing a good job. You
Yep.
want to like, wow, watch, number six sprint out to center field and come back in and look at the excitement. Like that's the player you want to be. You don't want to be the one where they can point you out so easily and say, oh, every time something that goes on, the third baseman just puts her head down and shakes her head. But then, you're the person that comes up and strikes out, and so it's like you can't be both things. And so when they start seeing it, they're like, wow, that's embarrassing. I'm never doing that again.
Yeah.
And it's a quick turnaround, it's a quick learn. But again, it allows them to really ramp up that intensity, right? Like, hey, we got to make sure that our experience and everything we're doing is good, but also our body language and everything matches what we're doing. And it shows. You can see the team that down that bad, six with them the rest of that day. And it just, I would just say it's a bad thing after bad thing. So just, got to have a quick reset. You got to get there with your teammates and just move on. And easier said than done, but I think after you do it for so long and you have the group around you that is like there too, it just goes by a lot easier.
Yeah, I love it. Well, this has been fantastic. We're about out of time here, Coach. So I wanted you to just one kind of wrap it up into the last little piece of advice you have for this community, and then at the end of that, if you want to share any information about how people can get in contact with you, if they've got players, there are a lot of high school coaches, a lot of travel ball coaches in the community that would probably love to send their girls your way, I would think.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, number one, it's been a pleasure. This was awesome, and like I said, I think more coaches, I hope more, and any way I can help, please let me know. But this is a great tool. I would say as coaches, you want to learn as much as you can. And doing things like this and being connected in the coaching community goes a long way. And I'll say that for myself too. And I love learning. I would just say I'm not going to be a better coach if I don't learn, right? So there's always something, as coaches we can learn too. But the biggest thing to kind of clear up is just know that you're being watched as a coach too. And I say I'm a leader not only with our players, but my assistant coaches as well. I'm also trying to teach them, and I love getting them involved. And I'm a very hands-on coach, and anything I can get them to do better, I try to. And I want them involved, and they're doing communications, and they lead some practices, and I want them to be valued. I'm not the main person or the only voice. Like, hey, I have three other coaches for a reason. I want to use them. Hey, tell me what you can do. Show me your skills. And hopefully maybe one day if they want to be a coach, I know like, hey, I did my job too. Even for them. So, just as a coach, you're being looked at from these athletes and they're looking, right? They want to see consistency with you too and holding everyone accountable. And I say that from your best player to the one that comes in off the bench, they all are the same. And once you do that, your program will change forever. And I stay true to that. I always just say every year, returner or not, you're competing for that spot. And it's a competition every day. But holding them accountable truly will show the respect that they want. And when they see you hard on the person that has the highest batting average or the most strikeouts, and the person that maybe doesn't, their respect goes to another level, and that really buys them into your program. And just make sure that the fundamentals are there because they're going to need those more than any drill you can do. Fundamentals are key, so they're going to do that at this level too every day. And there's a reason why we call them every day is because we do them every day. Um, but yeah, it's been a pleasure. Feel free, phone or email's easiest. A Rodriguez at salemcc.edu is my email. My phone number, 856-812-8490. Reach out anytime with a question, a quick phone call. I'm available. I said earlier in the talk, I'm on my phone a lot more than I should be. So I'm probably going to get back to you pretty quickly. And if anything, you can check out our page at salemcc.edu under athletics. Take a look at our team. We have a lot of out-of-state athletes. So anyone that's looking to maybe get away or experience it, even for 2 years, have them come out and try it out. But we're always looking for that next athlete to come in and change our program. Last year we had a student athlete from Missouri came in was the All-American in Division II JUCO. First time in our program, being back in 4 years, and now she's up at Stony Brook playing at D1. So we're doing everything we can here, but the opportunities are there. So tap in, reach out, and it's been a pleasure, and I hope to talk more.
All right. Thank you. Thanks so much. That's it for tonight with this episode of Inside the Dugout with the Pack. Thanks for being here, Coach. We loved it, and this is valuable information. If you're out there listening to this, make sure you get in touch with Coach and send your girls out his way.
Thank you.